Hello everyone. Is anyone still here? Hello? Oh. In all seriousness though, making new videos has been hard for me. I'll try my best to get a new one out each month, but I can't promise anything. If anyone has any ideas for smaller videos I can make in between reviews, just let me know and I'll try to make them. Reviews really take me a while to make, especially the long ones. For example, the Deadly Premonition review, that one almost took me a whole month to do. Anyway, so today I'd like to review a relatively new game. It actually has a similar setting to White Eye or Dreadout. But this game is just a little bit different. This game is about a very personal story, a psychological journey through the mind of a young Taiwanese girl. This is Detention. So before I start, have you ever heard of martial law? It apparently describes the imposition of direct military control upon aspects that the government usually would take control of. So before 1945, Taiwan was under the control of Japan, but was kind of self-sustaining. They also adopted a lot of the Japanese culture and the language. But after that, because Japan lost World War II, Taiwan was placed under the control of China to ensure stability. But China had a more central government in mind than the Japanese. So the Taiwanese people were revolting against that. And that resulted in a mass killing by the government in 1947. So because of that, the martial law was imposed upon Taiwan between 1949 and 1987. During this time, it was illegal to criticize the 1947 mass killings, resulting in a lot of secret organizations and clubs. What a mouthful depression for the first few minutes of this review. So, why am I telling you this? Well, Detention takes place during that period of Taiwan, also known as White Terror. The game was created by Red Candle Games in January 2017, and not a lot of people seem to be talking about this. These people wanted to show the world what it was like growing up during this period of time in Taiwan, and it was also made in Unity.
Unity?
Huh. Shit, most Unity games I know look like this. So in that aspect, this is a breath of fresh air. Actually, let me show you how I found this game. Huh, what is this? Holy shit, this actually looks interesting. Yep, I am definitely getting this. Yeah, it seriously was like that. I went in knowing nothing about it. And it kind of looked like Silence of the Sleep, another horror game I really like. I guess I have a thing for these psychological 2D horror games. But I do have to admit that Eastern Asian horror always fascinated me. Their ghosts are just so creepy. Alright, so let's get back to Detention. So as the game begins, you play a young man named Wei or Y who's sleeping at school. A man who sort of looks like a pilot or somebody who failed police school and just put on a stupid policey looking hat tells Miss Yin, the teacher, to come outside and take a look at an ominous list. And this will actually be very important later on. So Wei falls asleep in class, and when he wakes up it is very rainy and a message on the blackboard warns of a typhoon. And this is where you start playing and walking around the school. I want to say that this is where the game takes place, but quite honestly, this game is way too abstract and symbolic to really tell where and especially when exactly everything takes place. So right away, while exploring this first bit of the school, I'm noticing the great atmosphere. Or more accurately, this room is where I first noticed the atmosphere. Take a look at the flies and the sound design in this room. This is amazingly well done and really set the mood for the rest of the game. I also really like how you have to turn on the lights in this room first, before this thing kind of looks like a body. Nothing especially scary happens here, but this room is just so incredibly creepy. So you explore the first third of the school a bit, which really only consists of these 3 floors and a couple of eerie rooms. The reason this is still good though is because you get familiar with the place a bit. Eventually you find your way to the auditorium, which... This place looks familiar. Anyway, we find this girl here called Ray. Make no mistake, even though we are playing Y right now, he isn't the main character. Ray is. So after... that happens, we play as Ray for the rest of the game. Let's talk about the graphics. The look of this game reminds me a little bit of old Asian picture books, with its washed out black and white traditional looking characters, but very colorful environments. Everyone has to decide for themselves if they like the look of the characters, but my god, the environments are gorgeous. Look at the way everything looks and moves. These rooms are just beautifully creepy. In this room, for example, you have a movie screen lit by a creepy video of grotesque faces you can't quite make out. Or this room, where there's a tree in the middle of the room, covered with faces. But if you haven't been looking at the video and only listening to this, that probably doesn't mean much to you. There are lots of unique scripted events happening with absolutely gorgeous animations and looks. But the game isn't outright scary, it's just kind of creepy. And that's the kind of horror I personally prefer. If you're like me and got drawn in by the looks of this game, you will not be disappointed. They did such a great job in making you feel uneasy, but that is not only thanks to the great graphics, but also because of the music. In all honesty, I don't really have that much to say about the music though. None of the tracks are really that memorable or stand out as good by themselves, but coupled with the environment, they really are masterpieces. All the tracks fit great to what they're trying to do. They are dark and ambient, and they do it very decently. This is a point-and-click puzzle game, which means you point and click at stuff to make point-and-clicky stuff happen. You get a simple inventory with clues and notes to solve the puzzles. It is very traditional in that way. The puzzles themselves fit a good balance between easy and hard, although I never really had a problem exactly figuring out what I was supposed to do. But there are no listen to the noises at these exact points to put together a combination lock to open a door kind of puzzles. I am looking at you, Riven. So as I said, the puzzles are really simple and fair. Although I gotta admit, some of them are really clever and creepy. For people who aren't very good with puzzles, they shouldn't really hinder you playing the game. There's actually one puzzle where you really have to twist your head a bit to figure it out. And don't worry, that weird figure of speech will make sense once you see it. Although I'm not going to spoil it at this point. Sometimes you'll come across pieces of paper that will give you clues on how to deal with the various different supernatural beings around the world. Wait, did I say various? Sorry, I actually meant 2. 3 if you're generous, that have to be avoided using slightly different methods of holding your breath. Although encountering them is kinda creepy at first, I just wish there were more different ghosts. That is one gripe I have with this game. I bet there are tons of creepy Taiwanese ghost stories and folklore, and it's really a shame that there were only 2 different monsters that roam around the map. One of whom you can, and only at a single point must, distract with food offerings. Neither of the 2 are really hard to avoid though, making death a very rare thing to experience. Although to be fair, this game still does a lot to show you traditional Taiwanese spirituality and culture, and it does it well, but it kind of misses out on throwing in more folklore ghosts. Let me tell you that this is not a hard game. In fact, it only took me 3 hours to finish, which is probably shorter than it took for me to make this video or even write the script. No, this is a very symbolic game. It's not about killing ghosts or saving the world. This is a very personal story. In the following section, I will be talking extensively about the story and share my interpretation of a lot of the symbolism, and in turn, spoil the ending completely. So for anybody who doesn't want this game spoiled, please skip to the conclusion at the given time. So, what exactly happens in Detention? What is the game about? I'll try to put everything into chronological order and piece together the story a little bit with fitting parts of the game. Please note that the game isn't in chronological order. So, if you ask me, only the parts in which you play as Y are real. Everything else is the memory of a heartbroken and dead woman. At first, Ray had a pretty normal family, but eventually Ray's father became an alcoholic, and perhaps even drug addicted, symbolized by the syringes in this room. He started hitting and screaming at Ray's very religious mother, and eventually even cheated on her, and had to go to prison for what was probably a fight with somebody else, as seen in these radio segments. Confused and worried by her broken household, her grades at school started to worsen. She threw paper airplanes to symbolize her worries being thrown away, in hopes that, eventually, everything would be back again how it was someday. So after a while, she was called to counseling and fell in love with her counselor, Mr. Chang, as symbolized by all the colorful surroundings when walking through the movies. Mr. Chang even was the one who gave her her white deer necklace that we see in the beginning of the game. She probably threw it in here after being so heartbroken. So after counseling was over, Mr. Chang pushed her away and the colorful environment turns grey and dead. She finds out that Mr. Chang and Miss Yin, the teacher from the beginning, probably have an affair. So at this point, Ray's heart was broken by the only person she was able to hold onto in her life, and her family was a mess. I personally believe that at this point she kind of snapped and just acted without thinking. She just wanted to hurt Mr. Chang and Miss Yin for betraying her. So she found out about the book club in which Wei, Mr. Chang and a couple of other students were members of. Since this was a secret illegal book club, it is probable to assume that what the members were reading were anti-establishment books, and during martial law, this was punishable. You can even see Wei and another member burning the books to hide everything. Ray finds the members list of the book club and wants to use this to hurt Miss Yin and Mr. Chung, so she hands it to the police. She actually even sees the club list as a gun, which further proves my point. At first I thought this was a bug or something, but no, this is actually the way it's supposed to look, as seen later, where she shoots Miss Yin. So after the disbanding of the book club, it is clearly stated that Mr. Chung was executed, Miss Yin fled the country and was never allowed to return, but nothing is really said about Wei. At first I believed that he was executed as well, but looking at how his eyes open here, even after she cuts his throat in the beginning of the game, and looking at this man who I also believe to be an older Wei in the real world, at the end of the game, I am kind of assuming that he was imprisoned for a long time. In public there was a huge ceremony for Ray, but in secret people call her snitch for ratting out the book club. And eventually, heartbroken, full of regret and not being able to take the pain anymore, she commits suicide. The school is her limbo, in which she is stuck experiencing her regrets over and over again, with other ghosts being her only companions in this place. In the bad ending of the game, she kills herself on stage to relive everything once more. And in the good ending, she finally is able to forgive herself and let go. This is what I believe Detention to be about. It is a very personal story that remains without a happy end, and sadly this is how life can be. Just how the game keeps telling us that Ray can't undo what she has done. It is a very real, heavy, but creepy game. So in the end, what is there to say about Detention? Well, gameplay-wise, it's a decent point-and-click puzzle game with fun and clever, although not very hard puzzles sprinkled throughout the entire game. Ignoring the puzzles, the game itself isn't that hard either. Avoiding death is actually pretty easy. Every room is filled to the brim with atmosphere, and the Taiwanese folklore gives everything a unique touch of creepiness. The story can be heavy to take once you figure everything out. It is told abstractly and in non-chronological order, which might make it hard to understand at first. I believe this game to be right for people who are interested in Eastern Asian culture and horror, and people who enjoy more abstract games but can live without a real challenge. Detention really has amazing creepy moments to spare. There are too many great scripted events to count. I actually found myself not being able to stop and finish the whole game in one session, always in anticipation for what great moment and story would unfold upon me next. But although I really like this game, I feel like it is missing something. I guess I kind of expected a more dread-outed experience with more Taiwanese ghosts. And a lot of what this game does is just walking from A to B in order to solve a relatively easy puzzle to get to the next area. So personally, as I've described, I have a few little nitpicks about it, but nothing that would really stop me from playing. However, the worst point about this game, in my opinion, is its price. This game costs €12 full price and provides about 3.5 hours of gameplay. Even with the great graphics and the work that went into this game, I'm sorry to say this, but as atmospherically and awesome as this game is, that is not enough playtime to justify the price tag in my opinion. As I've said before, in my opinion, €1 spent should provide 1 hour of gameplay. So if you're on the edge about getting this game, I'd strongly suggest waiting until it drops to at least 50% before buying it. Although this is a very subjective point, I'll admit that. In the end, I would rate this game about 8 out of 10. 7 out of 10 if you agree with me about the price. It is a fun, easy, but creepily atmospheric East Asian game with a beautiful and heavy story to take in. Alright, before I end this video, I just want to throw out a quick thank you to D95. He's the guy who made most of the music I use in this video. And to be honest, I almost exclusively use his music now because his stuff is just so awesome. He has a great mix of genres. He has awesome upbeat, but also very low ambiental music. This guy's really awesome. I just bought his new album, or EP, I guess. So I'd suggest you do the same and go check out his Bandcamp. I'll just leave that link in the description. Thank you a lot, and goodbye.